Okay, so hi, welcome back. Just continuing with these tests with this camera, as you can probably see, I have relocated to my computer downstairs, which is letting in an awful lot of light, which is completely blowing out my face. But despite that, the frame rate still is not very good, and it gets actually really terrible if I move it anywhere out of this position. So not really sure how to feel about this at the moment. I suspect I may be considering sending this webcam back and trying my luck with a different model. But anyway, I want to say a little bit about this Lord of the Rings Extended Edition Blu-ray disc box set. Yeah, when the Lord of the Rings trilogy came out on DVD, I bought all three films twice. First of all, theatrical versions, and then later on in the year, the extended editions. Now, when the Blu-ray disc versions were announced, I made a conscious decision not to do that again. Firstly, because I think that in most cases, the extended editions are superior to the theatrical versions. And that becomes more apparent as you progress. I mean, I think in the first film, The Fellowship of the Ring, the additions in the extended edition, while good, don't fundamentally alter the film. But by the time you get to the third part, The Return of the King, certain of the additions more or less transform the film, and in my opinion should never have been removed in the first place. But that's par for the course. The second reason is because I read reviews, I looked at screenshots, and I could see that the picture quality on the theatrical BDs was nothing to write home about. There was detail didn't seem to be particularly impressive, and there were all sorts of adverse effects of digital tampering that seems to have been par for the course for a lot of New Line titles. And basically I thought, well, yeah, you can get my money if you do a good job, but A, I don't really want the theatrical versions, and B, I certainly don't want them looking like that. So anyway, flash forward a couple of years, and the extended editions have been released, and I'll just hold up the box again. I have to say it is actually a very handsome box. This is the US version rather than the UK version. I gather the UK packaging is a bit less robust, a bit less impressive, but yeah, I mean, I think this is a really nice package. It's kind of hard cardboard, glossy. You open it out and you've got the map and three BD cases, each of which contains one of the films. Now you get the film spread across two BD50s, and you also get 3 discs worth of standard definition DVD bonus materials. Now, as I understand it, these are simply repressings of the 2 DVDs that would have accompanied each of the DVD extended editions, and then also the bonus features DVD that accompanied I believe it was the 3-disc re-release of the entire trilogy, which features the Costa Botes documentaries, which I've not had a chance to take more than a kind of brief cursory glance at, but they seem to be very much a sort of fly on the wall documentary type thing. But anyway, that's all. That's all by the by. I think what people really want to know about is how do the films look, and well, the answer from what I've seen of them, and I have sampled all 3 of them quite extensively. I've not had the chance to watch any of them from beginning to end yet. The answer is they look very good. I mean, I'll discuss films 2 and 3 first because they've had the least changes made to them compared to the previous releases. Basically, you've got the same masters, but with all the horrible DNR artifacts removed, or well, rather most of them. There, from what I've seen, there does seem to be some kind of grain reduction baked into the master in certain shots, which I suspect was done at the digital intermediate stage. There is in The Return of the King, for example, there's the moment where Frodo and Sam are climbing Mount Doom, and Sam is asking Frodo, do you remember the Shire, etc., etc. And whenever you've got a close up of Sean Astin's face, the grain in the background is kind of behaving a bit oddly, and to my eyes it's quite noticeable. But in the long run, I wouldn't call it too detrimental. And while I don't think that these films are ever going to look kind of like, if you want to call them reference quality or demo material or what have you, I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't think they're going to reach those standards. But yeah, they do look good, and they go a long way, as far as I can tell, towards making up for both the underwhelming theatrical cut BDs and also the DVD releases, which, despite the rave reviews they got at the time, were actually never really more than mediocre. And nowadays, when you actually show people these BDs, quite often they're quite astonished by how underwhelming they look. I think people have been conditioned by the exceptionally positive reviews that appeared at the time into thinking, oh, this is the best the DVD format can get, and it really isn't. But anyway, on to the major issue, which is the Fellowship of the Ring. Now, on DVD and on the theatrical BD, this was always the worst looking of the bunch. It always had the least detail, and from what I've been told and from the captures I've seen, it had by far the worst of the DNR artifacts. Some of this may be explained by the fact that, unlike the other two films, Fellowship of the Ring did not have a complete digital intermediate. Part of it received a digital intermediate. In fact, I believe the majority of it, but certain elements were colour timed photochemically. So the DVDs and the theatrical BDs were derived from, I believe it was an interpositive, which is some way removed from the original camera negative, so understandably is going to fare less well in the detail department. So for the extended BDs, they've gone back to the digital masters, and I believe they have also rescanned the material that wasn't DI to begin with. Now, I could be wrong on that, so don't quote me on it, but I will try and find out for the next video. So they've gone back and they've done a fresh master for the Fellowship, basically, and as a result, it does look a great deal better. The DNR artifacts are gone. The level of detail in most places is improved, sometimes significantly, sometimes not so significantly, and basically it has gone from being the worst looking of the trilogy to, in all but one respect, the best looking. Now, that one respect is the colour timing, which has been receiving a great deal of, shall we say, spirited debate on various forums. Basically, shortly before the BDs were released, screenshots started to emerge showing the whole thing having a kind of teal, cyan, green, however you want to describe it, cast to it. Now, there was a fairly quick response from Warner, who stated that Peter Jackson, the director, and the cinematographer Andrew Lesney had recolor timed the film, and that this was how they wanted it to look. Okay, fair enough. And there are certain cases where you can clearly see that drastic changes have been made. Probably the most significant one is the shot of the Company of the Ring crossing the mountain, the snowy mountain, where what was once kind of a quite natural looking shot with kind of white snow, blue skies, now has a very pronounced blue push to it. Now, that blue push is not present throughout the film, so this is not some kind of blanket miscalibration. That blue was clearly put in there deliberately, so I don't think there can be any question about that. There are a number of other shots and scenes that clearly show that some quite substantial work has been done to the colour timing. However, I think there's a completely separate issue here, which is that everything between the New Line logo fading out and the first of the end credits fading in has a slight but noticeable green push to it. Now, this is most noticeable, A, if you compare it side by side with any previous releases, and B, if you take a screen capture into say Photoshop and use the eyedropper tool to identify the colour of any area that's white. Now, I would say that the best place to do this is the title card, the Fellowship of the Ring, because that is on the previous release is it's white text. It's flat white text. On this version, however, it is a kind of dull green text. Now, broadly speaking, from what I have seen, when you actually watch the film in a darkened room, the problems are not that noticeable. And the way the human eye works means that it does adjust eventually to the fact that there's no kind of pure white reference point. It kind of takes the well, I mean, basically it's kind of a very light green is now the white reference point, and your eye does adjust to that. However, that doesn't mean that the problem is not there. I mean, it may be minor. You may not notice it, but it is there, and that can be proven scientifically. When if you use the eyedropper on a screen capture, and I'm actually quite surprised that there is a debate about this, particularly on the AVS forum, where the S does stand for science. But yeah, anyway, I mean, despite this, I'm actually very, very pleased with how the Fellowship of the Ring looks. As I said before, it's in terms of detail and in kind of overall film-like qualities, I would say it has become the best of the trilogy, and I actually think it's a shame that it wasn't felt necessary to do a new master for the other two films. But who knows? Maybe somewhere down the line. You never know. Anyway, I do intend before too long to watch all three films and to do proper kind of in-depth BD impressions pieces on them. But for the time being, I would say that I know a lot of people are kind of waiting to see if there is a recall on these. I suspect there's not going to be. I mean, Warner have kind of come out and said, this is what Peter Jackson wants the film to look like. Now, as I've said, I suspect there are two issues at stake. One is the redone color timing, which is what Peter Jackson wanted it to look like, obviously, because he approved and supervised that. And then the other issue is going to be this green cast. Now, yeah, I mean it's entirely possible that the green cast was applied at Jackson's say so and that he's okay with it. But I would find that actually very difficult to believe, given how the crude nature of it, and it would kind of go against the kind of lavish attention to detail that he has, that he's lavished on everything else regarding this trilogy so far. So yeah, I'm not entirely convinced by that response from Warner, and I suspect that Peter Jackson's personal silence on the matter is quite telling. He usually interacts with the fans on Facebook quite extensively, but he is not directly replied to any questions that have been asked about the colour timing of this BD, which in my opinion says quite a lot. But anyway, no, I don't think there's going to be a recall, and I mean, if there is, it's not going to be for some time. I mean, if you look at Gladiator and Gangs of New York, both of which were botched horrendously, vastly more horrendously than The Lord of the Rings in their initial BD releases, and it took kind of upwards of a year or more in the case of Gangs of New York for anything to be done about it. Ditto Patton, which I'm told is getting finally a proper master that doesn't look like Madame Tussauds. Anyway, to finally cut to the chase, I would say this set is very nice. It is really nice. I would say buy it, despite the green tint, which is not as severe as maybe you've been led to believe, but is certainly there. So yeah, I mean, The Lord of the Rings, the motion picture trilogy extended edition, just to use its full title, gets a thumbs up from me, and yeah, go and buy it, and I hope to be able to say a bit more about that before too long. See ya.